Good evening.
Good evening, Laura.
How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Will you please introduce yourself?
My name is Jackie. I currently live with my family in Virginia. My husband is in the military, so we moved here about 3 years ago. And then,
Okay.
yeah.
And then what?
Oh, and I said that I'm a substitute teacher right now for Virginia school.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing about yourself. You and I have been friends for a very long time, and you knew my husband as well for a very long time. When did you first learn and experience what he can do?
I think the first time it was I was in college then, and I had to go home late when I was driving home. And I used to walk home carrying a mace. And that's when he was saying that, oh, what do you have the mace for? I'm like, well, I live in Chicago. 11, 12 o'clock midnight is pretty scary for me to walk home. So he's the one that gave me the Archangel Michael protection prayers. And then from then on, when I first said it, it felt very like, what is this? I don't feel anything. But after a while, I could feel the presence of Archangel Michael, and I have used it throughout my life, throughout my pregnancy, and everything else that I have done.
Why did you feel weird saying it?
I have no background in religions. So I'm like, I just know about my parents have the Buddhist background. So, but they don't pray to the Buddha. So just on holiday, like the Lunar New Year or what the Chinese call Ghost Day, they just pray to their ancestors and that was it. So when I was like, Archangel Michael, come and help me and guide me, it was like, who am I talking to? Is it even real? So that was felt a little strange.
All right. You had an experience when you were headed to the hospital and you guys had some Archangel Michael help. Will you please share that story?
Yes, I was going to the hospital to deliver my son. It was about 5 minutes before we got to the hospital, and it was in Skokie, Illinois. My husband was driving. It was a green light, so we were, crossing the middle of the street, the intersection, and this car almost rear-ended us. It was like literally the seconds of it, and I felt like, wow, Archangel Michael protected us because before when I was pregnant, I used to get really sleepy. And there's time that I would doze off. And Ken reminded me that, hey, make sure you set an Archangel Michael protection prayer before you get while you're in the car. That way you get protection. So I felt when I got in the car before we went to the hospital, I felt that we were being protected. But there were a few times during my first and second pregnancy, I would be driving on the highway, and you know how like when you're driving, you just doze off, but you're like, what happened? And there
Mm-hmm.
was a couple of times I like dozed off and almost rear-ended, and even my kids got in the car and said, "Mom, you almost got into a car accident." And that's when Ken reminded me, make sure you say the Archangel Michael protection prayers. So few times that had happened to me, especially the one that I remember the most was me dozing off on the highway and me going to when we went to the hospital when I had to deliver for my son.
Interesting.
Yes.
You have received a lot of guidance as well. Will you please talk about the first major set of guidance and how that impacted you and your husband? Because it had something to do with you moving as a military family.
Yes. Uh, Throughout my whole time that I've met Ken, as he got more training in what he does, the guidance became more and more clear. One of the major one that in my life was that my husband was living in California. He was working there for the military, and then I stayed back in Chicago. And something happened with the military with him that he was going to be kicked out the military. So then we were concerned what's going to be happen. And then the guidance that we got was that, you know, when if my husband were to be leave the military, it would be on his own term. But we're like, that's impossible because they were doing paperwork and what if he gets kicked out and we're planning to see what would happen. He said, no, if he were to leave the military, it would be on his own term, at his free will. So we listened to it, and then Ken gave us some decree for my husband to go ahead and stay every single day to make sure until everything is fine. And my husband in the service for 24 years, and that was in 2010. So the guidance worked because that's been over, so many years already, and he's still in the military currently right now. So that's one of the guidance that impacted the most that I believe in.
All right. And from there, the one where you had to move, and there was some talk about where you should go.
Yes, my husband, after California, he was able to move back to Chicago for work. So he stayed there about 2 years, and then later on we got orders to go to Virginia. And then my husband was excited because that's where he wanted to go. There's more job opportunity and stuff. So before we left, maybe about 2 months before we were supposed to leave, we got a choice for Hawaii. So I'm like, wait a minute, Hawaii or Virginia? Well, who wouldn't love Hawaii, right? The island of paradise. But then for Korea, we weren't sure. So one day we had a meeting with Ken, my husband and I, and we went and met with Ken. And the guidance was that he doesn't see Virginia in there. I was like, what do you mean? We want to go to, we don't want to go Hawaii. It's just too far away from the family. He said, no, I don't think you'll come back to Virginia, but you're supposed to go somewhere else. And then we're like, well, Virginia was a better option for my husband for promotion rights because he was waiting for his promotion. And then about maybe a week or 2 weeks later on, after we had the meeting with Ken, we got the order that Virginia was out of the question. We were going to go to Hawaii. And that came true, and we end up going to Hawaii. But sometimes stuff that Ken say, it didn't make sense because he doesn't have like timeline. He'll just tell us, this is what's going to happen. This is what I'm get. It doesn't make sense to him. So we'll just find out. And a lot of time he'll come back and tell me, yeah, so when it happened, can you come back and tell me? So at least I know about it. Or sometimes he'll give me things he doesn't know why. And I'll have to tell him afterward, oh, this is what happened.
Got it. Yes, I've experienced that myself too. So then you guys moved to Hawaii.
Yes.
You had some life-changing moments there, and it led you to end up going back to school. Will you please talk about that?
Yes. While I was in Hawaii, I was guided to homeschool my kids. We're in Hawaii for 3 years. So the first 2 years, my daughter went to school. And the last year, I was guided to homeschool her. So I ended up homeschooling her. And then we also got ordered to move to Korea. About 4 to 5 months before we moved to Korea, Ken said, you need to go back to school. I'm like, school? I'm like 30 something, almost 40. I can't go back to school. I'm done with school. I just homeschool the kids. He said, no, you have to go back to school. You need to change. That's what you're guided to do. On this earth, you're supposed to be a teacher. But in the beginning, he said, it's a teaching, but doesn't mean that is what I expect it to be. So I went during the time before we moved to Korea. I moved back to Chicago, took the kids there about a month and a half so we can spend time with my parents in Chicago before we leave to Korea. I was looking for school and filling application. I was asking Ken, how would I even know what school to even apply for? There's so many. Nobody's going to want me. Last time I went to school was in 1998. That's a very long time ago. And I would have to start all over again, 4 years with the kids. And then he said, I don't know, Jackie, just apply for it. And then there was like 3-4 school. I just searched online and I gave to Ken and said, these are the 3-4 school that I selected. And then he checked, he said, okay, this is the school you're going to go. And actually was University of Massachusetts. I'm like, University of Massachusetts, that's a pretty good school. They're not going to accept me. It's like, but what I had before is impossible. And he said, just apply for it and then go from there. Trust in the guidance. So I did, and then I got accepted. And a lot of my credit hours that I did in college back then, I think 2 years worth of stuff that I got, it actually transferred. So when I got accepted to their program for early child education, I actually only had to do 2 years 2 years left in my course to graduate. So that was pretty amazing. So that's how I got the guidance to go ahead and go back to school for teaching.
So you ended up leaving Hawaii then? From what you said, your husband was transferred to Korea?
Yes. So before we left Hawaii, when you go through life, there's a lot of things that happen in your life and changes. You can call it obstacles based on the video that, you and Ken did. A lot of them are like karma that we had to balance, right?
Mhm.
So I had a really big karma that I had to balance. And one time I was walking, I was still in Hawaii. I was walking, it was like 7, 8 o'clock. It was really down, really depressed. I called Ken walking this pathway, just a long pathway, there's no cars. I was walking and crying, like I'm at loss what I should do in my life and what's going on. I don't know what I need to do. And then he reminded me, oh, let me backtrack. When I was going to in Chicago, when I was applying for the colleges, we had ordered to go to Korea in 4 or 5 months later on, right? I
Right.
didn't want to go to Korea. I told Ken, I want to come back to Chicago. He said, no, you have to go to Korea. There's so much opportunity out there in Korea for you. You need to go. Just when you get to Korea, focus on your family, taking care of your family and school. And then I was talking to him in the car, and it was about maybe early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I was him crying. I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. And then he reminded me that, Mother Kuan Yin has always been guiding me throughout the time when I first met Ken and learning about descendant masters. And he reminded me Mother Kuan Yin's here to help you. She's always there by his side. And you may not see it, but she's there. And I was like, well, how do I know she's even there? It's like saying something, but you can't feel them. You don't know if it's true. And he was like, oh, she told me to let you know that anytime you feel sad or you need your help, or you just want to know if her presence is there, just look at anywhere that has a sign of pink. And that's how I know she's going to be there. Well, guess what? I was in the car and I look up. I was driving my sister's car and she has something hanging in her car. It was actually a pink color.
Oh, how
So,
cool.
so that's when I knew I'm like, okay, I'll be okay. So when when I was in Hawaii again, I was crying. I didn't know what to do in my life. It was just a stressful time during that time in my life. And then I asked, and Ken say, remember Mother Kuan Yin is there. Remember before you left Chicago, she told you when you're in a car, anytime you want to see her presence, you just have to see something pink. And I was like, okay, then. And it was the strangest, uncomfortable feeling ever. And then Ken said, I have to ask you this question. And then he said it to himself, I feel very uncomfortable asking you, but I'm supposed to ask you. I think he's supposed to ask me to give me a firm confirmation that Mother Kuan Yin was there. And in this, he
Mhm.
said, okay, go ahead and ask. And he said, okay, are you wearing a pink underwear? I'm like, yeah. That was like, how would he even figure that out? He's like, I apologize that I had to ask you, but I'm guided to ask you. And pink was reminding me that Mother Kuan Yin was there. But during that time, I never even planned like, okay, I'm gonna wear pink clothes, I'm gonna wear pink underwear or something pink on my body so I can feel her presence. I never planned any of those. I just knew that if I want to see pink, it would appear. So that was one of the incidents. And the second one was that still in Korea, it was getting closer to us about to leave.
Still in
I mean,
Korea
still in
or
Hawaii.
Hawaii?
Still in
Okay.
Hawaii. We're getting close to leaving Hawaii soon. And then 3 months before we left, I used to go up to this place in Hawaii called Diamond Head. If anybody ever been there, it's like a hiking things where you have just rock. It used to be a craters. So I would go there about
Okay.
5 o'clock in the morning. I would drive when it's pitch dark at night. I'll drive there and I'll run up there to get some fresh air. By the time I get up there, the sun will rise. So I would I was driving, then I would got there, I started hiking up, and I was just, just to get some relax my mind and everything. And then, I think back in my life again. I'm like, am I making the right decision going to Korea, or where I'm heading to with going back to school? And next thing I know, of course, in the crater is just all grass and rocks and brown color, right? There's some greens, maybe the sun is shining. And I turn around and look, and I pause, and I look to my left. I found a pink flower. And I was like, oh, Mother Kuan Yin is with
One?
me here too. Yeah, one flower, not a bushes, just one flower, pink, with three
That's
petals. It was just three petals.
wow.
So I look up and I'm like, oh, there's a pink petal flowers here. Mother Kuan Yin is here with me, because it was my way of relieving some stress, going ahead and doing the run and get away, and just being in a mountain and clear up my mind early in the morning. So that's another incident of a pink. And then when we first got to Korea, there was so many signs of Mother Kuan Yin. But the funny thing was, it's not pink anymore. It was a statue of Mother Kuan Yin.
Oh,
Every
that's right. You're an Asian now. They're probably all over the place.
right, but I didn't know Asia. I thought in Korea, a lot of them are Catholic or Christians, so I thought it'd be a lot of
Oh,
statue of
true.
Jesus and stuff. But in the temple, I thought to see more Buddha in the temple, versus I see a
Hmm.
lot of Mother Kuan Yin, and there's one right by the water. And then we were able to travel a lot, and a lot of places we went to. We went to Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. All those places, we have always come in contact with Mother Kuan Yin, with her
What a
statue. So
fascinating story.
yeah. So as you can tell, Mother Kuan Yin has been my ascended master that's been helping me. One of the ascended masters.
Indeed. You went to Hawaii. We're told there that you had to become a teacher. You went to Korea. Somehow online, I'm assuming you finished your degree. And how long were you in Korea for before you had to come back to the States then?
We were there for 3 years.
Okay. And when it came time for you to come back to the States, how did that work for you guys to move here?
Oh
What
yeah,
took
that was
place?
that was pretty. That's an interesting story. So we have paid. We were supposed to move back June of 2017. So in January, we saying, okay, we're gonna go to Virginia. But if you don't know, the military doesn't really give you like advance notice, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, they can tell you that you're supposed to go somewhere else and can change in a month last minute somewhere else. So we didn't want to search for Virginia yet, the house. So we waited, and then right about April is when we got the paper saying, okay, you're going to Virginia. Now we have to look for house. If anybody ever live in Northern Virginia, housing market is very competitive. House can be even for rent. It can be on the market saying today, and then it's going to be gone tomorrow, even for sale. And I have looked for rental before, but I have never really looked for rental that you require an agent. So in Virginia, people usually buy house, you get an agent, right? But for rental, you need
Oh,
an agent, because the agent have all the listing, and then that's how you get the house faster. But the good thing about with an agent for rental is you don't pay the agent. The person that's the owner of the property pay the agent to list for them. So
got it.
so we're looking at houses, and I told Ken, like, I'm not gonna be flying to Virginia to look at the house. So he said, hey, just find what you want, see which one it is, and send it to him, and he'll look at it for the guidance to see which house we're supposed to get. So I sent a few one, and then finally I sent one last one, and Ken looked through a couple of those houses, and he said, okay, this is the house you're gonna be looking for. This is the one you should sign the lease. I'm like, okay, I haven't seen it. It was a pretty big rent amount of money for not seeing the house, living in Korea and trying to rent a house in Virginia. And we had to do a 1 year lease. I'm like, what if the school was bad and everything? So we signed a list, trusted in Ken. We signed a lease. And then when we moved to Virginia in June, when I look at the house is literally less than 2 minutes walk from my kids to school. So it's very convenient. And then across the street from there um, is the Pentagon bus. So if my husband ever decided to have to go to work at the Pentagon, which he ended up having to do, he
Hmm.
was able to just walk across the street and take the bus to work. And then on the next traffic light over by the school is the main highway. So everything was just perfectly located. And even when I was able to find a sub, it's close by the house. I could even leave the house and go to work, and my kids would just close the door and walk to school, and I have to worry about it. And then, but the thing that Ken told me was that when you see the house, it's gonna have a pink or some kind of color like that. So I went. I'm like, when we first the house, my husband and I got it, and I saw it. I had to take a picture. I'm like, oh, I gotta show Ken, because sometimes pictures can be deceiving online, right? What they
Right.
posted. So I took the picture and sent it to Ken. Like, Ken, look, it's a pink door. So that was the house we supposed to be.
I'm glad you were able to find the right house.
I know.
You had mentioned that you were told to become a teacher and there would be a lot of opportunities. And
Right.
now you just mentioned substitute teaching. So, what were some of these opportunities that came up for you in relation
Oh,
to you getting your teaching degree?
so I forgot to mention my previous background was that I work in a hospital in the IT field in the computer department. So coming from a teacher is like totally different. But because I left the job and technology changed so fast in the industry with the hospital and everything else, going back to school, I'm actually glad I did, because when I went back, when I was living in Korea, remember Ken said focus on my job and then also focus on the kids. But he also mentioned that there's great opportunity in Korea for me. I'm like, what's there in Korea that can offer for me? And all I hear is just about these Korean K-pop and things. But when I got to Korea, I I wanted to build my confidence, because after being staying home with the kids, you kind of lose your confidence because you're not working. My husband's able to work to provide the income, so it wasn't the income that was the problem. It was more like I'm constantly just seeing the kids. I didn't feel like I was growing as a person. So when I was got into Korea, I started volunteering at the ACS, is the Army community service that they provide service to the military and the family. So I met some great friends there. They teach me about the military, how to grow yourself. And one lady said, if you volunteer for me, that's work experience that you can put down, and you're actually networking. So when I was there, she introduced me to one lady that works there, and she's the one that say, Jackie, why don't you go ahead and um, apply for the substitute at the school? I'm like, oh, they have that? It's like, yeah, you get paid while you work there, while you're going to school, and why not? And it's in your field. I'm like, oh, great. And then the one friend that I met at the ACS, she's like, Jackie, I'll hire you. I was like, wait a minute, I haven't worked in so many years. What do you mean you'll hire me? There's a job opening. You don't have to worry about interview. You'll get the job. And this is hard to get a job in the military or in the government field, right? And then I
Right.
talked to Ken and I was like, oh, I can get a job, and it's very hard to get in. And it's a long process. It could be 6 months to a year. And you have to do security background check and everything. But she's willing to hire me because I was volunteering for her. And then Ken said, nope, stay the course. Remember what your thing is. Go to schools, focus on your family. The the job at the ACS is not something that you're supposed to be doing. So end up, I turned it down. I still went ahead and volunteered for her, and then I went ahead and accepted the substitute position at the school. And because of the experience that I had, when I moved to Virginia, I was able to get a job right away as a substitute. And then one lady, the one that I'm currently working right now. So as a substitute, you get to choose your hours, any school you want. There's three
Correct.
schools that I normally substitute at, but there's one is a preschool that I sub the most. So that lady wanted me the most, that I can actually negotiate my time with her. I say, I have to leave after 9 o'clock when my son is on the school bus, and I have to be done by 2:30. She said, okay, I'll take it. It's like, and a lot of time they won't let you do that. As a substitute, whatever hour they set up, that's it. And this is a full-time position. So I asked her, I was like, well, what are you gonna do with all these extra kids when I leave? They say, we'll make it work. I'd rather have you than somebody else. So, but at the same time, if I did not go back to school, I would not be able to have a higher pay, because there's certain position, if you don't have a teaching degree or even a college degree, you can't even accept those kind of position. So there's many time when I sub at different places at the school, the teacher's like, wow, okay, you're really good. Do you sub for teacher too? I'm like, yeah, I do. And so I have gotten many private email where the teachers say, can you sub for me? Sorry, I can't. I already took a long-term sub with this school at this place right here. So that's
Those
some.
are a lot of opportunities for sure.
Yes, there are, and there's some few more too. But right now, my goal is to be with the family, because last time I asked Ken, should I be working full time? That my two oldest daughters older now, and my son, and he said, nope, stay back, focus on your family, take care of your kids first. You can work full time later. It was a good thing he said that, because a couple months ago, my son was sick, and I had to call off to tell them, hey, I can't come in today. But as a sub, you can do that because you're not obligated to work every day. I say my son is not feeling well. I had to be called off, and they say, okay, that's no problem. And there's another thing was that my husband last year was deployed to Afghanistan for a whole year. So we just recently moved to Virginia for a year. I have no families around me. There's no support system, and he was going to be gone for a whole year. But if it wasn't for the job that keep me preoccupied and me choosing when I want to work, I was able to be with the
Mhm.
kids whenever they need me. My daughter had volunteer at the school that they need volunteer for the orchestra stuff, and I'm able to be there. So the priority is taking care of the family first. So, but can they say, I'm doing something with, he get the guidance, has to be teaching, but it's not what I'm expecting to be. So I'm looking forward to see what that is. But everything
Me
else has
too.
been, yes, everything else has been exactly, the guidance that I've been giving. It's like, wow, if I didn't went back to school, I wouldn't be able to apply for these jobs, and the opportunity that I got and the confidence I've built up, right now working and being feel appreciated. Because when you're home, moving in the military every 2 years, 3 years, you're moving, and you don't work because you're constantly having to take care of the kids because your husband could be gone traveling. My husband used to travel to Guam, Saipan, in California, and I'm with the kids. There's no adult interaction, and you start to lose your confidence there about, like, man, I used to work, I used to have a career, but now it's like I'm a stay-home mom, what they call it, right? And then that's
Mhm.
when things have changed, where I need to focus on going back to school and getting stuff that I'm supposed to be doing this lifetime, balancing my karma. So that's it.
Fascinating stories. Now, I want you also to mention, please, if you would, about healing that's been done for you and your family. So I know you have
Um,
some really good examples.
the first one, the major one, was that when I live in Korea, well, backtrack, when I first was pregnant with my oldest daughter, I have carpal tunnel. I work in the computer, two monitors, two keyboards, so I'm constantly working. But it's what they call pregnancy carpal tunnel. So it went
Mm.
away after had the delivery with my oldest daughter. But then in Korea, it came back, and it was like the most painful thing. I cannot even lift a chopstick because my hand would hurt so bad. Like it's like a needle poking right at it. Or sometimes I could, if I sleep, if I move my hand a certain way, I feel like my bone just cracked. That's how painful it was. So I went ahead and met this herbalist in Korea as a local lady. So she went ahead and put this metal things in this wooden stick, and she would just hit my back. and my arm, I would get bruises, like literally bruises this big all over my body and arm. It was in so much pain. But after a
Ouch.
while, yeah, after a while, it felt a little better. She said my blood is clogged, so that's why I had all those. But it felt a little good. It, it felt a little good after a while, but would need like 12 sessions with her. But after 6 sessions, going driving an hour there, an hour coming back, 7 o'clock in the evening, I don't get home until 10 o'clock at night. So it wasn't worth the drive. And back then, I wasn't sure if Ken was doing healing work back then, but because we were living in Korea, a lot of time when I talked to Ken, it was just voice. So he didn't mention anything to me yet. So I went through that 6 months. I stopped it, and then I said, forget it. It's not worth it. So I went to the military hospital, and they did occupational therapy on me. They, put ice on it. They start scratching the skin and had me do exercise with my arm to help. Kind of helped it a little, but that didn't last long because we had to leave. But the pain was still there. And then when we moved to Virginia, I told Ken about my arm. I was like, my hand is really in pain. I can't sometimes hold the bowl to eat because I felt like my bone is cracking. So he said, okay, let me do some healing work on you. I'm like, oh, you do healing work? He's like, yeah, I've been working on it, but haven't mentioned much to you guys yet because he wants to, do more on other people first to see. So after, I don't know how long it took, but it took a little while. It wasn't one sessions. It wasn't like 2 times, but took a little while but I did felt a little better after a while. So I forgot how long it take, but my hand is fine. I'm able to bend it and everything else. So that was like, how like seeing paint, Mother Kuan Yin. Now this is really seeing
Uh-huh.
because it's on my hand. So that was one of the healing work that I remember seeing, having it done.
But it took a few months of treatments. Like I remember it being weekly routine treatments for you.
Right. But it's not the first time. And then it came back recently in about January this year again. So that was in 2017. In January, when I work at the preschool again, but I work every day, I felt that pain again, but not as painful as before. And then I told Kenneth, like, the pain on my arm happened again. And then he did some more healing work on it, and then now it's fine. I don't feel any pain or numbness or tingling feelings. So that's
All
on
right.
me. And then another example was that my son, when we live in Korea, he always, I swear, I shouldn't say the word, but every month he would have ear infection or he would get sick, and I'm like, we're paying for preschool, but I felt like he's not even going there at all because he's always home taking antibiotic or Tylenol, Motrins. And when we moved back to, usually when he would get sick in Korea, it would last about a week or 2 weeks. When we moved back to Virginia, I told Ken about it, and he did healing work on my son. And after a couple of times, when he was sick, had a fever, even my son noticed that it's like, oh, I don't take as much medicine, or I didn't even have to take medicine now. So, and he heals a lot faster too. And then another
Does he
one was,
still get sick as frequently as when you guys
no,
were?
no, he does not as frequent as before. Like I said, it was almost every month. But then there's one time my son has some rashes on his leg. It was like poison ivy or something. He got it in the summertime where he was playing in the grass field. So it was itching him, and I told Ken, and Ken said, the healing work, don't worry about it. And it was just getting worse and worse. And then Ken said, well, if it makes you feel better, if you want, you can take him to the doctor and see. So I decided, yeah, let me try it. Let me take him to urgent care. Took him to urgent care. They're not sure what is it. They gave him some antibiotic and stuff. And then I came back and I showed Ken the pictures of those medicine the doctor gave. He said, no, don't take it. Don't give it to him. I'll do the healing work. And then within a week, it went away. The the doctor said it might be poison ivy. The rashes went away, and there was like, it was the rashes. After the rash, it was like a brown spot. You know how like when you fall, those bruises, brown spot, and
Right.
it went away without having to take anything else.
So
Okay.
the poison ivy went away with just the healing work.
So Ken said, don't take the medicine. He'll just do some more healing work on. And then within a week, the poison ivy went away. The brown spot, discoloration in his skin went away, and it was back to normal. And I trashed the medicine.
Wow, you rebel, you.
Don't tell people that.
Is there anything else, any other story you'd like to share?
um, my son. So it's such an amazing story because if anybody ever met my husband and son, you can find them out in a million people. You can spot them because they look just alike. So before my son was born, we're eating in a restaurant. I think you were there, Ken, and the kids was there. And then Ken stopped. He's like, "Oh, your son wants me to tell you." I'm like, "My son?" I'm looking everywhere. I'm like, we're in a restaurant. I don't have a son. I have two girls. He said, "No, he's going to be born a year from today." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, and he wants to be called Junior," which is my husband, John Jr. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess." So then after a year, I was pregnant and I remember the name. So I told my husband, he's going to be called John Jr. My husband's like, "I don't want him named after me. There's other better name." He's like, "No." So it's guidance that he came a year ago. He wants to be called after you. And when my son was born, he looks just like my husband, like a mirror image of him. So I guess now I know why he wants to be called John Jr.
That's neat that he came through and told you exactly what he wanted. And you were
Yep.
surprised that you would even have a son.
Yeah,
Kind of a spoiler alert, but still fun
I
at the same
know.
time.
Yes.
All right. Any other stories or any other advice or anything you want to share?
Um, I wasn't a believer in the beginning, and it was sometimes still doubtful, with what's going on. But it makes me believe more in the guidance because as I follow, because if I don't follow, then well, there really isn't a time that I don't follow because I have seen it happen where if I do follow, things will work out. Oh, there's a last one that I want to share. So before we were supposed to move to Korea only for 2 years, and I was going to school, and then my husband. It's very stressful time for my husband when he was working in Korea, and he enjoyed what he does. He's a very hard worker, but it was just too much stress, and he doesn't mind the long hours. Just too much for him to handle. So after 2 years, we're supposed to leave, and then Ken told me our guidance is supposed to stay for 3 years. I'm like, that's impossible. He's not going to change it to stay for 3 years. And I asked, my husband's like, hey, can we stay for one more year? And I was like, the kids like Korea. I was selling him the dream, right? We like Korea. The kids like Korea. I was going to school. It's convenience. Everything is centrally located. We're safe here. And he said, no, we're moving. No way. That's not even an option. And then I told Ken, I'm like, he's gonna say no. He's not coming. He's like, just leave it. Whatever's supposed to happen, just say these decree, and then you'll be fine, and leave it up to God. And next thing I know, I think a few weeks later on after I spoke to him, he came home one day and said, "Oh, just to let you know, I extended for one more year." I'm like, "You did what?" He's like, "Yeah, I extended to for us to stay one more year, which is total of 3 years." And I was able to finish my school there that time. And I called Ken and I'm like, "Oh, guess what? We're able to extend it." So that was it. And then when I finished my school, it was my last semester was so hard. It was so stressful. I thought I'll never graduate it, but I ended up finishing it. And then we got a free trip to Hawaii. So when we're living in Korea, we went back to Hawaii with the three kids. Now I graduated already, right? But
Right.
the hotel we end up staying was the hotel my husband John and I was staying at in Hawaii when I was pregnant with my oldest, which was in 2005. So I find it
Oh,
so I find it ironic how after I graduated from getting my teaching degree, we're able to celebrate with the kids at the same hotel when John and I, my husband and I, first visited Hawaii. When we first went there for vacation, it was in the same hotel.
how
How,
wonderful.
yeah, how life just, bring it back where it's supposed to be.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these stories. I really appreciate it. And I
You're
think,
welcome.
and anyone who views these videos, hopefully they'll learn something as well from them and enjoy your stories too.
I hope so.
I appreciate your time, Jackie. Well,
Okay. Bye bye.
bye.